All right, welcome everyone to episode number 19 of the JD Outdoors podcast. Follow me on Instagram at JD underscore outdoors 1773. My guest here will be Elite Series angler Destin Demarion. You can follow him on social media at Destined2Fish. Today we'll be talking about fishing a chatterbait. How you doing today, Dustin?
Doing pretty well, Jordan. Yeah, thanks for having me. The
Yeah.
snow's melting a little bit, so I'm pretty excited. I don't want to have to drive down south in this 10 inches of snow we just had.
Oh, I don't blame you. I mean, that's how much you got by you?
We did. We got 10. I heard you guys didn't get nearly as much,
No, we got
surprisingly.
2 inches or so, and that melted right away. My mom is also in Pennsylvania. She's over by Mansfield,
Yeah,
and
they
they
probably
got
got quite a bit.
yeah, they got like I think almost 3 foot of snow or something like that.
Yeah, luckily we didn't get that much, but 10 inches in a day was a lot for us around here, honestly, because we don't get that much snow.
Yeah, I do not envy you there. I'm excited for ice fishing season, but I'm okay without the snow for now, honestly. But
Yeah, push it back at least until January.
yeah, exactly. A little snow for Christmas is nice,
Right.
but besides that, yeah, it's kind of just a pain.
That is a fact.
So, if you can you give us a little background on your fishing career, how and when you started fishing, all that good stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I started really early. I mean, like most northern people, I feel like our stories kind of intertwined. But I mean, my grandfather started me on it, but we fished for everything under the sun. Walleye, perch, crappie, trout, bass, bluegill. Muskie,
Yeah,
steelhead, whatever. It didn't matter. We just fished for everything. But I always took a liking to bass from the get go. And he was really the one. He got into it about the same time I did. He wasn't a fisherman until he retired, and luckily I came around about the same time, and we both learned it together really, and it was fun.
that's cool. That's awesome. And so, did you grow up in PA? Where did you grow up?
Yeah, we lived with my grandparents since I was 3, and I got to grow up and live with them, and go fishing with my grandpa all the time until he
Yeah.
passed when I was about 11, almost 11. And I kind of took it from there. But yeah, I grew up Western Pennsylvania, a little bit north of Pittsburgh.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah. So obviously, fishing is like you said, the northern people kind of have the similar story, and yeah, that just pretty
Hmm.
close to my story as well. And it's did you start off kind of just like pond fishing, or did you guys have a boat from
Yeah,
the get go?
ponds and streams
Yeah.
mostly. The trout thing's a big deal. We had a stream
Yeah.
within walking distance from my house,
Oh, that's
so when we
awesome.
stocked trout, it was cool. I mean, it actually has a lot of smallmouth in it too, so that's kind
Hmm,
of where I learned to fish for smallmouth. I would just go wet wade, in
that's cool.
apparel and tennis shoes all the time, and there was a dam, so above it was slow, weeds. It was largemouth. So I kind of had the best of both worlds right
That's
there. And I would
sweet.
just go on my feet. I mean, we never had a boat or anything. I
Yeah.
would just, walk around, wade, do whatever.
Wow, that's awesome. So, like from there, how did you kind of get into tournament fishing? Did you have a friend who introduced you, or
When I was a kid, I always watched the shows with him, and I was like, "This is what I want to do.
yeah,
I love fishing. I always did since I was like really young. I mean, I really, really loved it. Like that's what I want to do. It wasn't just a kid saying like, "Yeah, I really like that." Like I knew that's what I wanted to do.
yeah,
Um, in college, I played football, and my senior year, I started a fishing club at the college, Gannon University, and me and my buddy started that, and I got into a college fishing tournament at the end of my senior year, and I started fishing tournaments when I was, 21 years old. I'd never fished a tournament,
uh,
um, and went from there really.
that's awesome. I didn't know you played football. That's awesome. Yeah, so did I. I didn't
Mhm.
play in college, sadly, but definitely
What
shared a
position?
connection there. I was a lineman, believe it or not. You probably couldn't
Oh,
tell by
okay.
the way I look now, but
Yeah, I wouldn't say you're a lineman just from
no.
seeing.
Back in the day when I started playing, I was a lot heavier, and they were like, "Well, do you have any experience?" And I said, "Nope." And they were like, "Well, you're going to become a lineman," and I'm like, "I don't know what that is, but I'll take it." So I was completely green when it came to football, so I
Really?
just dove right in, and they were like, "We're going to tell you what to do," and I'm like, "Okay, I'll just listen and do whatever you tell me." So
Did you enjoy it?
yeah, it was awesome. Definitely one of longest lasting impacts something has had on me, because like I played sports growing up, like pee wee stuff and all that, but once you kind of were in a team and everything, it really teaches you a lot about working with others, and so it's
Yeah,
really something that I think
absolutely.
everyone should experience, a team sport for sure.
I do. I think football is really special. I mean, my grandfather was a coach, so like
Okay.
he wouldn't. He told my mom not to let me play till I was in middle school.
Hmm.
Just I don't know. He just said you weren't developed, you weren't going to learn anything. But um, we would be drawing plays up and stuff, just like the fishing. Like we'd be drawing plays up when I was a little kid, and he'd be telling me this and that and teaching me stuff, and it was pretty neat. But yeah, football is such a great team sport. Like it teaches you a lot about that, but it also teaches you about the value of hard work
Yep.
and not quitting and you know long term gratification. You put in the work and you're not really seeing anything until the season after the whole off season you're grinding away just to get
Yep.
that one couple few games to
Yeah,
to
for
really let
sure.
it happen for you.
Yeah, my senior year, we were in the playoffs, and we got to like the second round, and we just got obliterated by this inner city school in Buffalo. And
Really.
they had like this ginormous team, and they had just like kids that went to Boston College and stuff like that,
Wow.
just insane players. So it was kind of amazing to see, like, you're just playing your local teams and everything, but then you get to playoffs and you're like, these people are a different breed that make it
Oh
here.
yeah.
It's
Yeah,
something
I
else.
I
But
was fortunate too. I got to play against a few Division 1 kids
yeah,
in high school. And I loved it. I loved playing against those kids because I mean they're very much better than
yeah,
most of the people
yeah,
on the
yeah.
field. So I always enjoyed having to go up against them.
What position did you play in football?
So I was in high school. I was a tight end, and a linebacker,
Okay.
and in college I was like a tight end, and then I moved to H back. So I was more
Mhm.
of kind of like a motion fullback, tight
Yeah.
end, H back kind of thing. I was a lot bigger too, honestly. I was 235 pounds.
Yeah. Yeah, we got down a little rabbit hole here, guys. Sorry about that, but football is kind of one of my other passions, so I don't get to talk about it much. But anyways, so back to the bass fishing. What would you say is your best bass fishing memory that you can recall?
Hmm. The most recent one would probably be making the Elite Series. And the specific moment that I knew I made it was at Oneida.
Yeah.
The second day was really tough at Oneida. Most people struggled, including myself. I don't think I had a fish until 9:30, 10 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning. So the wheels can start spinning at that point. But honestly, I just kept steady and just kept believing in it. And I kept moving, and I finally hit on one spot that I'd caught him in a similar wind pattern in
Hmm.
practice. And I was like, well, we're down here. Let's try it. And
Yeah.
sure enough, I just grinded him out. I caught three, lost a big one right next to the boat. And then I was sitting on three for a while. And then I finally caught that other one about 3.5, boat flipped him, and I just like let it out because I knew I had like 12 pounds of four fish, and I
Yeah.
knew how tough the day was. And
Yeah.
I mean, I probably still would have made it with two or three fish, but like
Yeah.
knowing I had four and have a decent bag, like I knew I was in, and
Yeah.
it was such an exciting moment.
Yeah. Really sealed the deal there. That's awesome. That's and like you said, with football and everything, it's all that hard work all year long for that moment, and then
Hmm.
once it happens, it's just something else. It's
It's so hard to get to that point where you have that chance. You know
yeah.
what I mean? Because you've got to get through four events. Now they're changing it back to three
Okay.
for each division, but you have to get through those four events. And I mean, with the Easterns, we were in Florida, we were in Tennessee, we
Yeah.
were in Virginia, we were in New York. It's a very diverse set of fisheries, and to even have a chance, like I was just felt so blessed. I still do. Like it just
Yeah.
was my time.
That's awesome for sure. That's and that's something you're never going to forget either, obviously. So that's and Mark
Yeah,
talked about it
absolutely
on
not.
on the podcast with him too when he qualified and all of that. So it's just something else that real big milestone.
Absolutely.
So obviously you have a lot of experience fishing across the country, as you just said. But if you had to pick one place that kind of stood out to you, or like was your favorite place to fish, or possibly a dream place that you want to fish if you haven't been there yet? What would that be?
So Chickamauga, after the first time I went there, it's been my favorite place
Yeah.
since then. I will say after this year, I mean, we went to Lake Fork at a really terrible time of year. I mean, you wouldn't be able to tell from Patrick Walter's weight, but he
Yeah.
beat everybody by 30 pounds.
Yeah.
It was tough. When fish suspend like that, it's tough. But Lake Fork is becoming a place that I really could put on that list too.
Yeah.
But yeah, Chickamauga, it's just a special place. They stock Florida strain largemouth in there. It's got about anything you want to fish, you know, from the river portion. It's got laydowns, it's got hydrilla grass,
Yeah.
eelgrass, like anything you want to fish, ledges, it's got it. And it's a really cool fishery. It's beautiful down there. You got nice scenery. It's just an awesome place to fish.
Yeah, that's definitely on my bucket list for sure. I'm like I keep saying every podcast, I have that list in my phone, and all the time I'm like boom, boom, just adding places one by one, and it's hopefully gonna knock them all off eventually. But
Well, you've got plenty of time at
oh
least.
yeah, for sure. Yeah. Who was I talking to? Can't remember, but was saying that Lake Fork when he fished, he's an older gentleman now, but when he fished, what was it, the FLW something series back in the day? I can't remember what it was, but he fished Lake Fork and he said it was one of his favorite places to go. So it's awesome that, and that was 20 years ago now. So that's awesome
Yeah,
that it's still, however, 20 plus years since he's been there, and it's still pumping out, great bags and everything. So it's
they
amazing to
do
see.
a tremendous job there of managing that lake.
Yeah.
Like they really put a lot of emphasis on creating a big bass fishery. They've got a slot limit. They're really doing everything right there to
Hmm.
make sure it's a long-term great fishery. It shows.
Yeah, for sure. That's high up on my dream places to fish at the moment. Any place like Florida, California, Texas, they're all up there for me right now.
Those are the
Just,
primo bass places in the
yeah,
country for sure.
yeah, no doubt about it. And you guide obviously on the side, and
Mhm.
you have some experience in Florida. So how different would you say the fishing is from here, New York, Pennsylvania area to down south like that?
So generally the fish they position similarly. The biggest difference between Florida and almost the rest of the country is just how Florida bass act.
Okay.
Like cold weather to a northern bass doesn't really affect them that much.
Hmm.
In certain circumstances, it does. But in Florida, it can literally go from the best day you've had in your life to the next day. It's hard to even get a bite. And
Yeah.
you know the fish are probably still there. They just won't
Mhm.
bite.
Hmm.
And that's how the Florida fishing can be. Like it's feast or famine a lot of times. And you'll see that in tournaments. I mean, it's so important to get off to a good start in a Florida event. If you get 20 pounds or more the first day, oftentimes, even if you struggle the second day, you're still going to be in the cut
Yeah.
because so many other people will too, or other
Mhm.
people will have like decent day, decent day. You really, it's hard to stay in an upper echelon of weight in Florida because of that, because of those conditions. And usually when we're fishing, it was in the winter when a lot of fronts are coming through.
Yeah. Gotcha. So with that being said, when you're going into that situation, knowing that it can go from feast to famine in a day,
Hmm.
what are you kind of going all out on day one, trying to, are you preserving any fish? What are you doing, trying to spread it out for a few days, or you just kind of like got to go all out because it might not be here tomorrow, sort of thing?
Yeah, so that's one thing I've definitely learned, and I think it is you just got to beat the crap out of them when you can. When the opportunity arises, do it. Like even last year, when I made the elites at the Harris chain, I caught 17 the first day, and I was I don't know in the top 15 or something. I knew, and I laid off them, and I shouldn't have because I know I could have caught more than that. But I
Yeah.
laid off them about noon or 1 o'clock because I'm like, all right, I don't want to beat these fish up.
Yeah.
But there was plenty more fish there.
Hmm.
And when they're biting, you got to catch them. And
Yeah.
that's just something that everybody, you got to learn these lessons yourself sometimes. Like everybody's a little hard headed and
Yeah.
somebody can say something, but it's fishing too. So like you got to take everything with a grain of salt. You don't know
Yeah,
what might work for someone else might not work for you, but
that's true.
um, I think you should beat the crap out of them in Florida, especially in the winter when
Yeah,
fronts are coming through when conditions are changing.
yeah. From
When things are
everything
more
I've
stable, it doesn't matter.
Gotcha. Yeah, from everything I've like watched, read, researched, and everything, they're a lot more fickle down there in the winter, and because it's obviously a cold front to them might not seem like anything to us northern people, but we deal with it all the
Right.
time. So
Right.
it's a big shock for the fish down there. But
It is surprisingly cold there. Like it's like a bitter cold. It's a different kind of cold down there.
yeah,
And until you experience it, you really don't understand. When you see it's 45 degrees there and they're like complaining, you're like, yeah, like we deal with that like all the time and there's
yeah,
nothing. Like, and when you get there, it's bitter cold. Like
yeah.
when it's blowing there, and I don't know what it is about the air there, but it's really cold
Yeah, I'll have to experience. Hopefully, like we talked about before the show here, hopefully I'm gonna be
down there
experiencing
in
that this
February. Yeah,
winter. Yeah,
good.
but so let's kind of get into the meat and the potatoes of the episode right now and break down the chatterbait and what your favorite setup or setups are if you have multiple. The rod, reel, line, lure, plastic, everything to it. If you want to break that down
Hmm.
for us.
Yeah, so Chatterbait is really probably one of my favorite. It's definitely in my top three baits. I'd say I've made a good bit of the money I've made in my career on a Chatterbait, and the setup that I learned to really like over the years of just tweaking and stuff is a rod that's at least a composite, if not even a glass rod at times. Sometimes if you're fishing heavier cover, it doesn't have enough feel.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're fishing more sparse stuff or open water, it doesn't really matter. But when you're ripping out of the grass, I like a little more feel. So like a
Yeah.
composite rod. I usually like to throw one anywhere from 7 to 7.4, 7.5. This year my primary one was Abu Garcia, a Veracity 7.4. It was a moderate fast, so you've got that little bit of delay.
Mm,
Because when they eat it, you really want to give them a little bit of time to get that down. And the rod does that for you. It delays your reaction for you. So with that glass rod or a composite, the other one I was throwing was, I didn't get that one until later in the year, but that was a 7.5 winch. And that one's a composite um, uh, chatterbait rod made specifically for chatterbaits.
yeah.
And that one's got a little bit more backbone than the 7.4 Veracity, but it
Mm,
also has that delay. So you're not
yeah.
really trying to pull it away from them. But that's the one I would want to be ripping through the grass. Because a lot of times with a chatterbait, you want to be creating a reaction by, ripping it through the grass, banging it off stuff,
Yeah.
just reeling along shallow rocks or reeling it through some, hitting off a stump or, something like that where it's just going to deflect a little bit erratically.
Yeah.
It's more of a chatterbait or a crankbait thing, but
Mhm.
honestly, same effect. You can have the same effect with a chatterbait. I like to throw it with anywhere from like a 6.4 to 1 to, a mid 7, 7.3, 7.5 to 1 gear ratio.
Mhm.
The reason being, a lot of times, if you've got a longer cast, you want a faster gear ratio to be able to pick up that slack when you get a bite and really
Gotcha.
get a good hook set into them. The 6.4 to 1, generally when I just really want to slow it down or maybe get it a little bit deeper.
Mm,
So
okay.
that's going to have the natural effect. If you're using slower gear ratio, it's going to allow it to get a little bit deeper.
Mm,
And that's actually one of the things I didn't talk about as much at Santee, and that is something that I did. I
got.
used a little bit slower gear ratio reel because a lot of the trees I was fishing were fairly deep. I think a lot of people were just burning it. So
Mhm.
like I had a good color, I had a good bait that they were biting, but also like how I was letting it get down more in the water column, I feel like I maybe triggered a couple more bites that way.
Mm,
I,
okay.
I, I threw chatterbait on both setups, with both gear ratios, both rods too. So I kind of mixed it up. But that's something else to take into account is, where your bait's going to be running in the water column. So line size is another thing you can, adjust that with. I mean, I don't recommend it necessarily, but a lot of people do throw it on 12-pound fluorocarbon, and that's specifically to get it lower in the water column. If you're using, like I use Gamma Edge fluorocarbon, you're not going to break 12-pound Gamma on a chatterbait, like in open water type situations. Yeah. It's too strong. It's really hard to even break it if you're snagged on a brush pile or something. You have to basically back your boat up just to break the stuff half the time. Like you can pull the brush pile up more often than you break the line. But most of the time I'm throwing like 14, 15, 16 kind of fluorocarbon. That's kind of the range I like. Most of the time I'd say 16.
Okay.
I'd say once in a blue moon, 20 if you really want to stay shallow. You're fishing a little heavier cover, I would go a little bit heavier, but also with that heavier line, you might be killing the action of it just a little bit. So you got to take that into account. But that's kind of like the range of line size and what they're good for.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. And I've messed around with the different line sizes as well, but you did make a good point going down to even 12 to get it, that much lower in the water column, which is a great point there.
Yes. And more action out of it.
Yeah. Good point. So what, if you want to share with us, what specific chatterbait do you like the best, or do you use a bunch of different brands, or kind of what's your deal on that?
Yeah, I don't say I pretty much use like almost everybody. I use the Z-Man ones.
Yeah.
I really like the jackhammer, like everybody, but I also throw I believe it's the custom, the one Z-Man custom chatterbait. I think it's got like a stouter hook on it, so I have like that one. I used that one before the jackhammer came out, and I've kind of not used it as much. I would say, but I've used them all. Like the original, that was the jam for a long time until more came out. I'm sure the original still is good. I just haven't thrown it as much.
Yeah.
The jackhammer's just got really good components on it. Like you don't have to worry as much about parts breaking down on it. It lasts longer. It's just a good quality bait, and it's got that sound. Obviously, the jackhammer, the blade is hitting off both sides.
Yeah.
So that's what's creating a different sound, vibration, whatever it may be. And the fish seem to not really be that conditioned to it yet. I mean, they hear a lot and see a lot, but still works.
Yeah, for sure. And then for those who haven't kind of followed along with you and whatnot on your Instagram and social medias, what plastics do you usually use on the back?
Yeah, so my favorite's been the Berkeley, the Deal. It's a newer chatterbait trailer, and it kind of lines up so like if you're putting a craw or something, it's going to go like this.
Yeah.
Or a swim bait, it's going to be like that. So this is kind of like a swim bait craw, I would say.
Yeah. Okay.
So I hook it horizontally, and it's got two tails that go this way instead of that way, like a craw. And I don't know, there's something about it. It's just a little bit different feel, look in the water, and it just seems to work well. I mean, I've caught them on it in a lot of different places. I mean, it doesn't seem to really matter where we go. You can catch them on it. And I just don't think it's something that they see necessarily as much. It's just a little bit different thing. And sometimes that makes all the difference.
Yeah, for sure. So speaking of kind of I guess finding that right combination and whatnot, what colors would you recommend, or how would you break down your color palette when it comes to the chatterbait? Because obviously, like crankbaits, chatterbaits, everything in fishing, there's unlimited amounts of colors and it can become overwhelming. So how do you break that down and kind of stick to a few colors, or maybe you use a bunch? But
yeah, I like to keep it simple with most of the stuff. I'm going to use dark colors, in dark stained water a lot of times, the black and blues, some black and red, primarily in those conditions. Even the green pumpkins, bluegill patterns, those are more in like the middle stain to even clear water. I'll throw those. Your whites, your white and chartreuse are going to run the gamut of clear to stained water as well, just depending if you're mimicking a shad, you're mimicking a bluegill, which is your green pumpkins. Even your darker colors can mimic a bluegill, depending on the water color. So those are the primary and even the cross, so like the black and red or
Yeah.
something like even the green pumpkin can imitate a cross. So those are pretty much your food sources about everywhere you go.
Yeah. So when you're targeting a specific species, whether it be spots, smallies, largemouth, will you change the colors as well? Like, obviously chartreuse tends to get smallmouth going a little
Mhm.
bit more. Will you tend to stick towards that or?
No, I mean, there's been times when I have, but really, I think the watercolor a
Yeah,
lot of
really
times
does it.
dictates it. There's definitely certain fisheries where, white and chartreuse might be better or something with chartreuse. There might be, but honestly, most of the time, if the watercolor's right, just a
Yeah,
white's gonna work.
gotcha.
It's just putting it in the right place a lot of times, and that's really the key.
Hmm,
And the
gotcha.
trailer too. I mean, the trailer's important.
So will you switch kind of you'll switch the color of the trailer, or will you switch the trailer completely to a different
Hmm.
style if you're trying to mimic something else?
Yes. Yeah, I'll do both of those. So, I mean, I'd say the primary trailers for like a chatterbait or some kind of a craw,
Mm-hmm.
it's just some guy or a grub, like something that's got two tails just going that way. And obviously now the deal that's going
Yeah.
that way. Then you're just like a boot tail swim bait. That one's tough to beat. A lot of times with that too, you can create more drag, keep it up higher in the water column with like a boot tail swim bait
Okay.
too. A fluke is a good one. That's a
Mhm.
very good finessey one, and
Yeah.
that's gonna allow it to get lower in the water column a lot because it doesn't have as much drag. It's kind of more
Yeah. It's
streamlined.
not picking it up. Gotcha.
So those are primarily the ones. Like, I mean, obviously everybody knows about Lake Fork, like the jointed one. So the Lake Fork
Yeah.
Magic Swimmer, which is original, the Yamamoto Seiko,
Yeah.
like all those are really good too, and they kind of work in almost all the situations,
Hmm.
but all the rest of them have their time and place.
Yeah. So when you're on a fishery, will you have kind of multiple chatterbaits set up to try and really hone in on that, whether it's the weight of the chatterbait or the specific color or style, or will you kind of mess around with that and just see what
Yeah,
is
a little
working
bit.
best?
Um, I'd say if I needed to improve on one thing is being in practice and stuff, messing around more with that.
Okay.
Um, and I definitely will focus on that this year more so. But yeah, I usually have a couple of them, different sizes, but maybe even adding, another one or two different
Mm,
line sizes, chatterbait sizes, different
yeah.
trailers, just so I have them all ready instead of switching them back and forth all the time, just to save some time. Yeah, I think it would benefit because I mean sometimes you could go down a bank with a 3/8, not get bit. You go the half, it just gets down a little bit deeper. You
Mm,
change the trailer, and it just the fish are on it. I
yeah.
mean, that's
So
how
those,
simple sometimes it can be. Simple and difficult.
yes.
How it can change things.
Yeah, those little subtle differences, as a lot of people talk about in bass fishing, are what really makes the difference. And you wouldn't think that switching from 3/8 to a half would be like, monumentally different, but some of those days that's exactly what it is. And it's just
Hmm.
something about it, whether like you said, it's getting it a little bit deeper or whatnot. It's just something that it drives them crazy when you can be fishing with someone on the back of the boat, they're throwing something slightly different, not catching anything, you're catching them all. It's just those little subtle differences that really do it. And
Yeah, fish definitely react to pressure, fishing pressure, as well as just barometric pressure, different
mhm,
things that are just going to move them around and decide and determine whether they're, active and inactive at certain times.
yeah, as a lot of people who know me uh, are familiar, that I do not put down the chatterbait for some reason. If I'm largemouth fishing,
Mhm.
it is so difficult for me not to throw it. I've just caught so many fish on it, like since I've been introduced to it, like 3 years ago now. I was just throwing spinner baits before that, and once I found the chatterbait and everything, it was just like lights out for me. I just couldn't put it down, and I still can't. I have two on almost every single tournament, and it's difficult not to. Even that day that we were on the Niagara River, like in the back of my head, I'm like, if I throw a big 1 ounce chatterbait right now, are these smallies going to demolish it? And I just never got around to doing it, but it's still on my mind trying
They
it.
very well could have.
Yeah, like I've been making my own chatterbaits recently. This one is unpainted,
Sure.
but yeah, this is one of the first ones I ever made, but I got ones with the big 1 ounce head, and I just feel like for smallies, that with like some white and chartreuse, I feel like that's just going to be the deal. When I don't
Oh
know
yeah.
why, but I got a feeling. But
Smallmouth have been known to eat a chatterbait a time or two.
yeah, for sure. It was crazy on the river. It was 2 years ago in the middle of summer, and I'm fishing with Scott Gald, and he's like, we're going to fish shallow. And I'm like, we're going to fish shallow for smallies right now? It's like 80, 90 degrees out. And he's like, trust me. And we're whipping the chatterbaits around, and like in inches of water, I catch this smallie. And I'm like, why are you here right now? This doesn't doesn't make sense to me right now.
River fish, they're just a different breed.
Yeah.
They like to be shallow. I mean, they just love it.
Yeah. And it's crazy, even from like the St. Lawrence to the Niagara River. Obviously, their makeup is a lot different, but just how different those fish are. And in the grand scheme of things, they're not that far away from each other. Like,
Hmm.
but every smallmouth is just a tad different, from Erie to the river to Ontario to the St. Lawrence. Like, and I
Oh
haven't
yeah,
even fished for smallmouth down south or anything like that, so I can't even imagine like how much
they're
different.
much different.
Yeah, it's
Yeah, they're
they're
definitely
amazing
much different.
creature. Not of course, a little thing or two about catching smallmouth as per your performance this year on Erie, but yeah, 30, almost 30 pounds, something. I'm so happy I was there to witness that, because that was
Dude,
just,
yeah, that was cool. I mean, just to share that with everybody, that we've been hanging out with that weekend and stuff,
yeah,
including yourself. That was pretty sweet.
it was just like, I'm sitting there looking at it just in awe, like this can't be real right now. And then to boot, there was what was
7-2.
7-2 caught as well that day, and it's like,
Mm-hmm.
how, just the it's just mind boggling to me still. I can't believe that it happened, but it's just fish that big, like all together at once. Just like you see big bags. We've seen plenty of 25-pound bags out of Erie and whatnot, but once you get into that 29-pound range, that's just a class of fish that is just out of this world to me. It's
Yeah, I mean, we almost had a 6 pound average. So,
yeah,
I
no
mean, it
doubt.
was it was just one of those days. Like everything came together.
Yeah. Like, you guys broke my PB every
Every
single
fish.
fish you had in the bag, but which it's really amazing. And I'm still new to Lake Erie and whatnot, so I figured I'll do the tournaments just to kind of get that experience in. We zeroed, but it's still learned so much those few tournaments on Erie this year in the fall. It's just it's a different type of fishing, honestly. Like
Totally.
just
It's so much
fishing
different
40
than the
plus
river,
foot. Yeah,
and it's just its own thing. I mean, we were catching them in 30 to 40 feet of
yeah,
water. I mean, a lot of times I'd see them, there'd be 50 of them there. And we get them fired up and catch a few of them, and that was all you could get. It was kind of like summertime ledge fishing, where you get
yeah.
get a few to fire up, catch them, catch them, catch them. They shut off,
On to
leave,
the
go
next.
somewhere else.
Yeah, that was also Justin and I, when we were fishing, we were kind of laughing. We were like, I swear these guys aren't on a spot for more than like 5 minutes. We're just seeing you guys zoom, 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 and
That was
obviously
totally
it paid
like
off.
ad
So
libbing. That was totally like just on the fly. Like we had anticipated fishing a couple areas within a close proximity, and I just
yeah,
wasn't feeling it. Like we caught
yeah,
six our first draw, like first place, and I just wasn't seeing them. And I was like, dude, I'm just not feeling it. Let's go run some new stuff. We ended up catching them mostly off of one spot I found 3 years ago,
yeah.
and nobody was even near it. And we pulled up there, and I'm like, oh my gosh, dude, they're there. And we just lit them up for an hour straight. Like
The
we
boat
were,
load.
one of us would catch one, other one would be fizzing it. They'd throw back in, catch another one. I'd be like, you fizz it. I'd throw back in, catch another one. It was insane. And then we ran around and we'd call one here, we'd call one there. And then at the end of the day, we called another one like almost 7. So it
Yeah,
was pretty sick.
yeah. It really is. And who knows what's in store this year? Obviously, the fishing just keeps getting better and better each year on Erie. So
It
30
does.
pound bag definitely possible in the fall on Erie. There's no doubt about it. And
Oh yeah, I mean, I've known people just fun fishing, including
yeah,
myself, that have like done that. But in a tournament,
yeah,
when everybody's fishing the best stuff,
yeah,
I mean, I didn't believe. I thought we had 27 or 8. Like not 29. So I mean, it was pretty sweet.
Yeah, not to mention just fishing against, like Western New York hammers that some of them dedicated their whole entire lives to fishing Lake Erie. You know what I mean? Like some of these guys, they'll fish largemouth occasionally, but like their main thing is smallmouth on
No,
Erie. So it's
those
really
guys
awesome.
are awesome. I mean, they're really, really good
Yeah,
Erie fishermen, and just good all around. I
yeah,
mean, that was a good field of guys and
yeah.
great anglers. I mean, it was just a fun tournament.
Oh, for sure. And we had good weather and everything. It just
Yeah,
everything played in, and you know, towards the end of the day, like it went from almost flat calm to getting a little on the lower end of the rough side there once we were on
hmm
the way in. But it's like for the weather to cooperate that good for you on Lake Erie, you got to be blessed. It's just
I know we got lucky. I mean, obviously the first day they canceled.
yeah, but we
Um,
still got out on the
we
river.
lucked out the second day. I
Yeah,
mean, that was great.
yeah, for sure. So we're getting down a few rabbit holes here, but it's all good. Everyone loves talking fishing. So I have a few last questions to wrap up the show. One's a little bit fun, and then the other one is kind of just a tip for everybody. But what would you say is your favorite snack on the water?
I would say like beef jerky, uh, like deer stick type stuff.
Yeah.
My favorite is Duke's, like the little sausages, the
Oh,
Duke
okay.
sausages. Those things are the bomb. Those are definitely my favorite.
Yeah. It's awesome hearing what people eat because like a few episodes ago pizza and then it's just kind of
On the
all over
boat,
the
really?
board. Yeah, it's something. He was saying that he gets a whole pizza, eats half of it the night before, and then half of it on the water. And I'm like, that's not a bad idea.
It's like a hot and ready deal right there.
Yeah, exactly. Go to Little Caesars.
$5, two
Yeah,
meals.
exactly, for sure. And then the next question is, do you have any tips for staying positive on the water? Obviously, everyone struggles with this, but if you have any tips that help you out that you'd like to share, I'd appreciate that.
Yeah, I feel like I've definitely gotten better at that throughout my career. I'd say there was a time period where I wasn't, and
Mm.
the results would show for that. Like when I had a little tough spell of a couple of years. But I'd say the biggest tip that I've learned and the biggest thing I've learned is like you just you can only control what you can control. And if you see things as like out to get you or this didn't go my way, it's never going to end well if you focus on those things. You really just have to focus on what you can control. You just got to focus on, okay, I lost that fish. Well, what did I learn? What did I learn from that experience? How can I catch another one? It's time to catch another one. Reset is a big thing. So like if you feel like you're kind of getting negative or something like that, just try to reset mentally, whether whatever your cue might be to start filling with tackle,
Yeah.
um, open the lid, start doing stuff, and then get back up, and it's a new period, it's
Yeah.
a whole new opportunity, just resetting your mind. Fiddle with a graph, whatever it may
Yeah.
be. You just kind of have that thing that resets your mind to say, all right, this is a new day, new moment. It's time to just focus on what I'm doing and just put everything outside of your mind. I mean, that's another thing is like really trying to focus on what you're doing and not thinking.
Yeah.
I'd say that's a big part of it. If you're thinking, that's when those gremlins are going to get in there. That's when, if your motor doesn't start, you're going to be flipping out. When if you're just in the moment and you're doing okay, well, what's the next step? I can start disconnecting my battery. I can
Yeah.
reconnect this. I can check that. I can jump it. I can do that. There's really no situation where flipping out's going to help you,
No.
I
Yeah.
would say.
Yeah.
So really focusing on not allowing yourself to
Spin out of
go there
control.
because it's
Yeah.
100% within your control.
Yeah. And going back to what we talked about earlier with football and whatnot, it's there's no breaks during tournament fishing. It's like and I find it hard for myself to force myself to take a break every now and again because you need it. You need to drink water, eat something, but it's like when I'm looking at it, it's like, okay, I have 8 hours. I got to catch 5 of the biggest fish I can. And every second that I'm not having my line in the water, I'm not going to catch a fish. But, that's all, not always the best mentality. You got to take a step back now and again
Right.
and, take a bite to eat, drink, and think about what's going on and just kind of dissect the situation and not get too spiraled out of control.
Yeah, and I think making sure you're hydrating yourself, you're eating when you get a little stomach rumble, you got to go get something to eat.
Yeah.
If you feel a little parched, you go get something to drink. Like you got to take care of your body. So if your body is going haywire and you're just ignoring the fact that you're thirsty,
Mm-hmm.
your mind's going to go there. It's
Yeah.
just you're a human being. That's why it's how we're wired to
Yeah.
survive, honestly.
Exactly.
So you just need to address those things, even if it's taking an extra 5-10 seconds out of your day.
Yeah.
It's going to help that much more you and staying focused and hopefully catching another fish or two that you wouldn't have just because you're paying more attention. You're more aware of things.
Exactly. And that's definitely something I got to get better on. And my dad, because he's my tournament partner for most tournaments, he's yelling at me
Mm-hmm.
all the time. He's like, bro, you need to just sit down and eat something or drink something. I'm like, man,
Yes.
there's only 5 hours left in the tournament. We don't have time to spare right now. But he's right. I gotta take that little bit of time, whether it's a few minutes out of the day, and just relax and drink some water, realize why we're here and what we're doing. We're here to have fun and catch fish and not,
Yes.
get spiraled out of control and break rods and get all mad. And
Right. I mean, that's a great way to stay positive too. You focus on you're there to have fun.
yeah,
Ultimately, it's fishing. Even if we're fishing for $100,000, I'm taking it the same as when I'm fishing for $100. It doesn't
yeah,
matter. We're just fishing
yeah,
in the scheme of things. Like it's just fishing.
yeah,
And when you allow it to be more than that, is also a time where it's easier to go to that negative place because I got to do this. I only got this much time. Well, you know, I've got 3 more hours. That's a positive.
yeah,
I've got 3 more hours to catch them. Like you can
hmm,
turn that
yeah.
into a positive. It's just how you spin it.
Yeah, that's true, and we're all super blessed who get to fun fish because some people have to fish for their food, and we're not. We're not in that situation, so the pressure is off quite a bit when you don't have that. Like, well, no one's gonna eat if I don't catch fish, but we're just doing it for fun, so it's all about the perspective on it, and
Right.
but yeah, thank you for coming on the show today. I do really appreciate it. I learned a lot, and I hope the listeners did as well. Is there anyone that you'd like to shout out, sponsors, family members, anything like that?
Yeah, I'll give a shout out to Edge. I mean, they've been my biggest sponsor, other than my family and my wife for
Yeah,
putting up with me and stuff. But Edge, we do infield mix for baseball and softball fields. We're pretty much the biggest player in the industry. Most major league fields that you see have Edge, all the way down to your local parks and rec fields.
yeah,
It's been a cool ride with them. They've really given me this opportunity to pursue this, and I mean, I try to make sure that I'm reciprocating for the last 6 years of helping them, and it's a great company to work for. Really, the owner's a great dude. He's he's giving me a chance. Like he like no one around here knows anything about fishing, and he and I talked initially, and I mean, he gave me a chance, really, and that's all it took. I mean, this year he called me when I was at the Santee tournament and made the top 10, and he's like, I've never really told this to anybody, but like, I, when we started, I we kind of talked about like, yeah, I'm just gonna give you a job, and we'll see what goes from there. He's like, and because fishing thing, it probably will never work out. He's like, no, there's really not been many situations where I've like ate my words. And I
yeah,
was like, well, obviously I'm not trying to make you eat your words. And he's like, yeah, I know that. But he's like, I'm just like so surprised. Not necessarily that I didn't believe that you could do it, but just like, it just doesn't really, you know, until it's real, it doesn't really
yeah,
feel like it can be, you know what
yeah.
I mean?
I get what you mean, and it's awesome that you are able to fish as much as you do and balance working with them still. And because obviously your social media, you see stuff about Dirt Edge all the time, which I think is awesome because like you're maintaining your contact with sports and everything while still fishing, which is, awesome because when you can blend those things together, it's just, it's really awesome. Like two big passions coming together. It's not many times that works out that you can do them both at the same time, sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it definitely gets harder now just with how much time constraints for
Yeah.
me to get everything I need done. But I mean, I've been able, even with the pandemic, to go to a lot of our jobs. A lot of my job is, doing video and stuff, doing a lot
Mhm.
of marketing for the work that we're doing, visiting our customers, taking them fishing, which has kind of gotten slowed down with all this. But
Yeah.
I'm hoping that we can ramp that back up because I mean I've
Sure.
visited a lot of customers and made a lot of friends. Honestly, I mean I talk to a lot of these guys regular basis, so it's pretty cool that like I've got to take those guys fishing, make relationships with those guys, and now to some extent, a lot of them are following, the elite
Yeah.
series and really into it. And it's pretty cool because, their job is very much like the fishing. It's very dependent on the weather. They're
Yeah.
outside all the time. They're grinding hard for
Yeah.
just that little bit of something, to get that gratification. And it's pretty well the same kind of thing with
Yeah.
groundskeeping and fishing. And a lot of guys are, outdoors people by nature.
Yeah. And that's awesome. Like you said, like once you kind of get them introduced to fishing a little bit more, then they start following it, and it's just like you gain one more person in that. Because obviously baseball's been around forever, and like the major sports, but not many people are viewing fishing like a major sport at the moment. So it's like, the more people you can kind of get involved and spread the word, then eventually, where I feel bass fishing, tournament fishing can definitely be as mainstream as football and stuff like that.
Absolutely. I think we've took a really big step forward with that, with all the live ESPN
Yeah.
coverage, which is a positive from the
Yeah.
pandemic for our sport, is we've had that opportunity to showcase what bass fishing is and professional bass fishing is, and specifically with how good of quality of a production,
Yeah.
JM Associates Bassmaster puts on now. Like I know we've gained a ton of new fans and a lot of new followers from this. And now with the deal with Fox Sports and
Yeah.
having a tremendous amount of guaranteed live coverage all year, it's only going to help grow the
Yeah.
sport, which it's peaking. Fishing has really been a winner during the pandemic overall. License sales are way up, tackle sales are up, everything is way, way up. Tons of new people are getting into the sport, and
Yeah.
it's definitely a positive out of this situation that's not been viewed very positively.
Yeah. It's kind of awesome because like I'm making all these lures now and selling them, and I'm getting a lot of new people who have
Nice.
barely fished before and getting into it, and they're kind of like, well, what should I use? And it's kind of awesome to kind of point them in the right direction because we all know the people who are misinformed when they're fishing, and it kind of can be a pain in the neck, and you're like, well, you got to use this for that, and they're like, a little lost. So like part of the podcast why I'm doing this is to give people the information because if you search, you can find what you need to know and like everything. Because when I first started, I was definitely doing some things wrong, even when I did do research. But like a podcast where you're hearing a professional fisherman break down how to use a chatterbait, if it works for him, it's going to work for you. So it's like something like that. You can kind of just pass along that knowledge and information, and but it's all about growing the sport and getting more people involved. So that's the most important part.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the most gratifying thing is just getting people involved, helping people, younger guys, learn more and hopefully, be fishermen for life. I
Yeah,
mean, that's why I'm very blessed and thankful that I was given that opportunity because literally fishing has been one of the most constant good things like throughout my life.
for sure. All right. Well, thank you again. I really do appreciate it. And thank you to all of you who are listening at the moment or watching, because this will be available on YouTube as well now. But tune in for episode number 20 of the JD Outdoors podcast, brought to you by Woo Tungsten, Tacticalories, X Zone Lures, and now the JD Outdoors Lure Company. Thank you, guys.